Hey friends, it's Jacob. I just finished this painting, and I'm going to show you step by step how I did it. So let's get right into it. Okay, here is the reference photo I'm going to be using today. This is a view of the San Francisco Peaks in Flagstaff, Arizona. That mountain in the background is Mount Humphreys, which is, in fact, the tallest peak in Arizona. I've hiked it many times. It's absolutely spectacular. And I really love how this scene captures the vastness of space that we have out here in the West, both in the sky and on the ground. And then those huge mountains in the background. And then you've got that line of trees that kind of runs right at the line where the mountains meet the foreground. That really divides those two elements of the scene and gives a really nice sense of scale to the mountains. And then we've got these beautiful, heavy, dark clouds in the sky to kind of bring it all together. And the clouds are really something that I want to showcase in this scene, and I want to make sure that I do them justice. So I'm going to spend quite a bit of time getting the clouds right. So let's jump over to the painting. Okay, so I've got my scene sketched out here, and you can see that I've taken the time to sketch in roughly the shapes of the clouds. And that's really going to help me get the clouds right. And what I'm going to do first is paint in the sky around the clouds. And I'm leaving the clouds just pure white for now. And I'm going to be lightening up the color of the sky as it comes down towards the horizon. That's a good rule of thumb, which is generally skies will lighten as they go down towards the horizon. The blue itself will be a lighter tone, and then the value will also be lighter. Just a few areas here and there where that sky is peeking through the clouds. And I'm going back and darkening up the sky a little bit here and there to heighten the contrast between the sky and the clouds. Now, one of the secrets to painting clouds that actually look like clouds is painting wet into wet. So you can see I took that spray bottle and I sprayed down the body of the clouds. Wet into wet just means that you're painting into wet paper, which will give you nice, soft, fuzzy shapes. So I've got this mixture of kind of cool gray, and I'm just painting in the shadows inside the clouds, giving them nice three-dimensionality. And I'm leaving the margins of the clouds white, which will give them kind of a shining look as the sun shines through the cloud. And I'm leaving some areas within the cloud white here and there, and that paint will bleed into those areas and create these really nice rippling, undulating effects. So I'm just going to continue dropping in that grayish color, and I'm going to be changing it up here and there, making it more warm, making it more cool. area is drying out too fast, I can take that spray bottle and just give it a nice little spritz. I need this to stay wet while I'm working it. Painting right through that, you can see I painted right through that background mountain, because that's going to be significantly darker in the next wash. This is only the first wash. I'm just focusing on the sky. Alright, now I'm going back in and adding in some darker grays into those clouds, into those areas that are still wet. And this is really going to give the clouds a three-dimensional look. I really wanted to make them look dark and heavy and looming. You'll also notice that the clouds have perspective. They get bigger as they come overhead and then smaller in shape as they recede towards the horizon. So normally in the first wash, I would paint over the entire scene, but I need to spend this time to finish the sky before I worry about the stuff on the ground, before it dries out. Okay, that sky is done, so I can continue on painting the stuff on the ground. Those distant mountains and peaks, and then the foreground. And you'll see that I'm making that farthest distant peak quite a bit bluer than the hills that are closer to us. That will help push that back into the background and really exaggerate that sense of space and distance. That's another good rule of thumb, is that generally things that are farther away tend to have a more blue cast to them, and things that are closer tend to be warmer. And while that grass in the foreground is still wet, I'm going to drop in some additional colors just to add some texture and interest to it. Just some yellow ochre, some burnt sienna, some darker greens here and there. So I've let that first wash completely dry out, and I'm going to start darkening up those mountains in the background, starting with the most distant one, painting this in with very cool gray. And I'm going to bring that dark, cool gray right down to the top of those hills that are closer to us. I'm going to paint right around the edges of those. Now I'm taking a clean damp brush and scrubbing into the base of that shape to create a kind of misty atmospheric effect. Now painting in that hill on the right side with a darker, kind of earthy green. This is a semi-overcast scene. The lighting is somewhere between fully overcast and sunlit. So the lighting was tricky to get right. And there's some areas on the mountains on the left where there's these highlights where the sun is peeking through the clouds a little bit more. And that's something that I'm really going to want to preserve. It's a very beautiful effect. So this little peak that I'm painting right here is the one that has that nice highlight on it from the sun, kind of on the right side of that peak. So I've kept that area lighter. Now I'm attempting to lift up some paint from this background mountain. Paint is a little too wet to do that, so I'm going to have to come back to that later. And the reason I want to do that is to create more of that misty atmospheric effect that I was going for before. Now I'm just adding in a little more texture for this grass. Just darkening up some patches here and there with a darker green. I've got this brush kind of splayed out so it's got some teeth on it, and I'm using these short vertical strokes. It's kind of giving you the impression of the texture of those different clumps of grass sticking up here and there. And just like the sky has perspective, grass also has perspective. You can see that the lines I've painted, those horizontal lines, as they recede into the background, actually get closer and closer together, kind of giving you the impression of those ridges of grass as they recede into the background. You wouldn't think that grass has perspective, but it does, turns out. So there you see I was able to successfully lift up some paint from that most distant peak. Paint can't be too wet to do that. It has to be the right amount of dryness, and it also can't be too dry. It's got to be just the right amount. So now I'm starting to paint in those trees along the base of this hill. And I'm kind of painting a pointy, jaggedy shape along the top, and then these little tiny vertical shapes to hint at those trunks at the base of the shape. I didn't want to just paint a blob going across the base of this hill. I wanted to actually portray some of those individual trees. They just look so tiny compared to what's behind them, and it really gives you a sense of scale for this landscape. There's also some trees along the top of this hill that create a really nice kind of interesting shape silhouetted against the sky. And doing the exact same thing again, just painting a jaggedy shape towards the top and hinting at the shapes of those trunks along the bottom. Painting some more of those trees as they go down the left side of that hill, which is going to help separate that hill from the mountain behind it. Now darkening up this hill so that I can really exaggerate that spotlight effect on the right side of the hill. Just adding a little bit of texture here and there with some dry brushing. Now just adding some finishing touches, I'm going to paint a few little plants sticking up out of the grass. In the reference photo, this was the only one, this one that I'm painting here on the left. But I decided to add a bunch more because I really like the shape of those plants. It's actually an invasive species, not native to here, but they're a very iconic part of the landscape up in that area of the state. These little vertical plants that just stick out of the ground everywhere. Making some bigger, making some smaller. Again, this is just further emphasizing the scale of the landscape. And that's going to be a finished painting. So if you want to learn more about how to paint skies, how to paint clouds, let me know in the comments. And subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.